Very beginning of the book of Leviticus this week. We begin Vayikra. We begin the book that is the manual of the priesthood in ancient Israel and what needed to happen, all the specifications for what needed to happen in order to keep the relationship between the people Israel and the divine in good, functional, working order. It is not the system, right, that we use to engage, obviously, with sin and atonement and all of the many ways that we want to draw close to the divine. But in the ancient world, this was normative, the idea of sacrifice and the idea of rituals that happened along with sacrifice. In ancient Israel, originally only sacrificial meat could be eaten. And so really it was understood that there was a real seriousness to what it meant to take the life of something, of a living creature, for us to consume it. And for us to be able to do that meant we needed to share that with the divine. We needed to take that as a very serious religious and ritual moment, and it wasn't done lightly. So as much as we kind of go, sacrifice, if you go into a grocery store, right, there's lots of dead animal in a grocery store, tons of it. And as a 13-year-old, I was reading a book, Leviticus, you have no idea, by Rabbi Maurice Harris. And he quotes a 13-year-old in his class who was kind of surly and never talked and never engaged. And his classmates are all going, when they come to this learning about sacrifice, which is what this week's Torah portion is about, the kids are all going, oh my God, and they're freaking out. And Maurice Harris can't get them under control. And then this surly 13-year-old who never says anything, erupts into this diatribe about, we're talking about how gross sacrifice is really. If you go into a grocery store and you're standing there, you see the walls lined with animal body parts, and we farm livestock in a way that they're not treated in any way, in any kind of humane ways, and they are mass-produced. And then we go into grocery stores that are lined with animal body parts, and we stand around talking about soccer and gas prices, and you think this is crazy. We have to sometimes change our perspective in order to appreciate where other cultures and other peoples are coming from, including our own. The thing about sacrifice is that people understood that there was a need, because sacrifice was not about the individual. Sacrifice was about cleansing the communal space. If I do something wrong, I sully the communal space that causes the divine to be pushed away. So people didn't bring sacrifice for themselves. They brought it to cleanse the space for the community so that the divine could dwell in the midst of the community. We forget that a lot of times, especially today. It's all about me, right? Is everything okay for me? Is everything okay for my family? Is everything okay for my people or my neighborhood or the people who agree with me? And we get so caught up in that we forget that we belong to the communal. We belong to one another. And I don't know about you, but when I go to the common spaces, when I go to CNN, or I go to the newspaper, or I go to the places that are our common places of discourse, I am shocked and horrified at the level of contamination of the public discourse that has happened in this country. I think Vayikra is a corrective for us. It's a really important reminder that we each contribute to either the purity or the uncleanliness of the public space. And when it is filled with the dross of all kinds of behavior that we might term unholy, right? Not conducive to holiness, ungodly, not godly, when we participate individually in that kind of behavior, we contaminate the public space in a way that the divine cannot be made manifest there. Each of us, Vayikra tells us, has a responsibility for contributing to cleaning up the public space in the way that we can. This Shabbat, may we each be really conscious of what that means for us this week. As we have conversations, as we engage on social media, as we encounter other people, maybe people who disagree with us or who think differently about things than we do, let us really think about whether or not we are contributing to the contamination or the purification of our public space, that we might increase, by being careful like that, the presence of the divine among us. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.